The dining room smelled like rosemary, expensive wine, and the kind of polish you only notice in houses where nothing is ever allowed to look lived in. My wife, Leela, sat beside me, her knee pressed lightly against mine under the table, an anchor. Across from us, her brother, Derek, leaned back in his chair like he was hosting even though it wasn't his house. Next to him sat his new girlfriend, Sienna, dressed like she'd stepped out of a brand campaign. Perfect hair, perfect smile, eyes that moved around the room like she was scanning for weak spots. Dinner had barely started when she found one. So, Leela, Sienna said, swirling her drink. I have to ask. She tilted her head toward me as if I wasn't sitting right there. When you married him, was it like your little charity project? Or was it more of a rescue mission? For half a second, nobody reacted. Then Derek let out a laugh, a sharp, approving one. Their parents followed with polite chuckles, the kind people use when they don't want tension but also don't want to correct someone with confidence. Even an aunt down the table laughed too loudly, like she was trying to stay on the winning side of the room. I felt my wedding ring under my thumb. I always twist it when I'm thinking, a small habit I didn't even notice until Leela once asked if it meant I was nervous. In that moment, I wasn't nervous, I was watching. Sienna smiled wider, encouraged by the laughter. I'm kidding, she added, but her tone said she wasn't. It's just, you're so gorgeous, Leela. And he's, Her eyes flicked over my plain button, down, my inexpensive watch, the way I sat quietly. Very grounded. More laughter. They laughed like it was harmless. They didn't realize what I'd brought to the table. Leela's fingers tightened around her fork. I could feel the anger in her body, contained only by years of being trained to keep family dinners pleasant. I didn't correct Sienna. I didn't defend myself. I didn't even smile. I let her keep talking, because I wanted the whole family to hear it. To understand why that laugh hit so hard, you need to know what my wife's family thinks a real man looks like. My name is Ethan Cole, and this is the story of how one dinner changed my marriage, because it forced my wife's family to finally see me as a person instead of a punchline. To them, I'm simple. I'm the quiet guy Leela married, for love. The one with the modest apartment, the sensible car, the job title that doesn't make anyone's eyebrows lift. On paper, I work in operations for a mid-sized logistics company. I don't talk about money. I don't wear labels. I don't play the status games that her family treats like a second language. What they don't know, what I've never volunteered because I didn't need their approval, is that operations is just the clean way of saying I run the part of the business that keeps multi-million-dollar contracts alive. I'm the person companies call when a shipment problem becomes a lawsuit. I'm the one who gets brought into meetings when executives stop posturing and start asking, how do we fix this before it blows up? I've built a reputation doing that, quietly, reliably, and I wanted to keep my marriage that way too, quiet and steady, without turning every family gathering into a scoreboard. Because Leela isn't like them. She's kind, stubborn, and brave in ways they never taught her to be. But she's still their daughter, which means every dinner comes with invisible strings. Sienna, the new girlfriend, didn't know any of that history. She just sensed what the room rewarded: confidence, sarcasm, and someone to stand on. When my wife said her brother was bringing someone new, I expected awkward. I didn't expect a public audition. The truth is, Sienna didn't invent the disrespect. She just said out loud what had been simmering in that family for years. From the day Lila introduced me, her parents measured me the way they measured everything else, by what it looked like from the outside. Her father would ask about my job with a smile that felt polite until you listened closely. So, Ethan, he'd say, is this a stepping stone position? Or are you comfortable staying where you are? Comfortable. Code for stuck. Her mother was subtler. She'd praise Leela's sacrifice, as if my wife had chosen a harder life by choosing me. You know, she once said at Thanksgiving, passing the mashed potatoes, some men really like taking care of their wives, providing a certain standard. Leela's always been used to more. I'd look at Leela and she'd squeeze my hand under the table, quiet, apologetic, and furious all at once. And then there were the comparisons. A cousin who just made partner. A friend's son who bought a lake house. Derek would bring up names like they were trophies. Trevor got a Tesla, Derek said once, like it was news that mattered. You ever think about upgrading Ethan? Or are you minimalist by choice? Derek loved an audience. He'd throw those lines out and glance around the table to see who laughed, who agreed, who approved. Because Derek wasn't really mocking me for my sake. He was performing for his parents. He was the golden son who needed the room to confirm it, over and over again. Leela tried to buffer it the best she could. Sometimes she'd redirect the conversation. Sometimes she'd correct a jab, her voice calm but firm. "Than's doing well," she'd say. "He's good at what he does." But in that house, good wasn't a compliment unless it came with numbers attached. So when Derek announced he was bringing a new girlfriend, I expected the usual forced smiles, polite questions, and Leela bracing herself for the subtle comments she'd later apologize for. What I didn't expect was someone who understood the hierarchy immediately and decided to climb it using me as the first rung. She walked in like she owned the room, and within minutes, she decided I was the easiest target. By the time appetizers hit the table, Sienna had already figured out who the room wanted her to be: funny, sharp, confident, a little ruthless, just enough to make Derek proud. She leaned forward, resting her elbows near her plate like she was settling in for entertainment. "So, Ethan," she said, and I noticed she dragged out the first syllable like she was trying it on. Then she smiled. "Or is it Ivan?" "Ethan," I corrected gently. "Oh my God," she laughed, waving a hand like my name was a minor inconvenience. "Sorry, I'm terrible with names." She wasn't. She just learned the easiest way to make someone feel small is to act like they're forgettable. Derek grinned beside her. "His used to it," he said, tossing the line out like a treat. I kept my face neutral. "No problem." Sienna turned her attention to my job, eyes bright with fake interest. "Lila said you work in operations?" she asked. "So what does that mean exactly? Like you just sit at a computer and tell people where boxes go?" A couple of chuckles bubbled up around the table. Not loud laughter. Polite laughter. The kind that says, "We heard your joke, we approve, keep going." Leela's fork paused mid-air. "He runs operations," she said, voice steady. "He manages supply chain issues for major accounts. When something goes wrong, he's the one who fixes it." Sienna blinked at her, then smiled wider. "Wow," she said, as if she was impressed in the way you're impressed by a child explaining dinosaurs. "That's cute." Derek laughed again, louder this time. I could feel Leela's anger rising like heat beside me, but she didn't explode. She was still hoping for a normal dinner. Still trying to give her family the benefit of the doubt. Sienna's eyes drifted down to my wrist. "Is that your watch?" she asked, tilting her head. "It's very simple." Then her gaze flicked toward the window, where my car was parked in the driveway. "And you drove here in that. What is it?" "A Civic." She said it like she was naming a disease. It wasn't curiosity. It was a test, and she was grading me out loud. Derek could have shut it down. That's what people like to pretend. They'd say something if they saw someone being disrespected. They'd protect family. They'd be fair. But Derek didn't protect. Derek performed. He leaned back in his chair, arm casually draped behind Sienna like he was proud of her. "Baby," he said, grinning. "Ethan's the sensitive type. He's all about simple living and not needing status." He glanced at me, eyebrows raised, daring me to contradict him. "I'm all about not wasting money to impress people," I said calmly. That earned another round of laughter, because I'd just given them something they could twist into a joke. Sienna laughed too, tilting her head toward Derek like they were a team. "See, I like that," she said. "It's refreshing. Some men get insecure when they can't keep up." Derek snorted. "Oh, he can't keep up. Trust me." He nodded toward the window again. "That car alone tells you everything you need to know." Their parents chuckled. Soft, reluctant, and still wrong. Not because they were cruel people at their core, but because they were the kind of people who valued peace over fairness. The kind of people who thought correcting disrespect was more uncomfortable than letting it happen. I watched them closely as they laughed. It wasn't that Sienna was so funny. It was that laughing with her made them feel united, like they were welcoming her into the family by sharing a target. Leela set her glass down a little too hard. "Enough," she said, voice low. Her mother's smile tightened. "Leela, don't be dramatic. It's just teasing." Derek waved a hand. "Relax. He knows we're kidding." Sienna's eyes slid to Leela, then back to me. "I mean, she said, tone light but sharp. You kind of married up, didn't you? Leela's family is, well, you've seen the house. She smiled like she'd offered a compliment. But it wasn't a compliment. It was a reminder. You're here because we allow it. That's when my wife's face changed, because the joke wasn't about me anymore. It was about us. Sienna lifted her glass before dessert even came out. It wasn't spontaneous. It was practiced. Like she'd been waiting for a moment where all eyes would be on her. Okay, she said brightly. I just want to make a little toast. Because I love ambition, and this family clearly values it. Derek's smile widened, proud like a stage parent. Sienna turned toward me with that same sweet expression people use right before they embarrass you and call it humor. Ethan, she said, I just want to congratulate you. A couple of people chuckled already, sensing where this was going. Congratulations, she continued, on landing a wife who's way out of your league. Seriously, that takes confidence. Or luck. Or maybe Leela has a thing for projects. This time the laughter was louder, real laughter, the kind that fills the room and makes you feel like the air has been taken from you. Someone at the far end of the table, Derek's cousin, I think, pulled out a phone, angling it casually like this was a cute family moment worth capturing. Like my humiliation was content. Leela's chair shifted sharply. Stop, she said, voice tight. Sienna held up a hand as if she was calming a child. Oh my God, it's a joke. Don't be so serious. Derek laughed and raised his glass. To Ethan, he said. May he always stay humble. More laughter. I looked around the table and realized something that felt strangely clean. This wasn't teasing. This wasn't awkward first, meeting nerves. This was the family choosing a scapegoat. Because it was easy, because it bonded them, because no one thought I could do anything about it. I set my napkin down slowly. The room was still laughing when I spoke. Can I ask you something? I said, calm enough that it cut through the noise. The laughter tapered off. Faces turned toward me. Sienna smiled like she expected a punchline. Sir. I met her eyes. Do you really believe what you're saying? For the first time that night, she hesitated. Not because she felt guilty, because she wasn't sure whether the room would keep protecting her. Then she recovered, leaning into it. Yeah, she said with a shrug. I mean, if you were ambitious, you wouldn't be driving that car. The room went quiet in a way that felt different. Like even they could hear how ugly it sounded. I didn't raise my voice. I just reached into my pocket and decided I was done being their punchline. I pulled my phone out, not like a threat, like a receipt. My screen was already lit with a notification I'd ignored twice during dinner, a calendar reminder for a Monday morning call. 6 Riverside Freight, Vendor Performance Review, Sienna Park's new account onboarding. I tapped it open and scrolled once. The email chain was right there underneath. The subject line bold and unmistakable. Us welcome to the Riverside Freight Vendor Program. Next steps, from is Ethan Cole, Director of Operations, Vendor and Risk. Sienna's smile twitched when she saw her own name on my screen. She tried to laugh it off. What is that? It's your onboarding? I said, voice calm. For your new job. Her eyebrows lifted. My job has nothing to do with. It does. I interrupted gently. I turned the phone so the whole table could see. Your company just signed a vendor contract with mine. Starting next week, you're the account contact listed on the file. Derek blinked, confused. Wait, what? Sienna leaned forward, squinting like if she stared hard enough, the words would change. That says director? It does, I said. Her cheeks flushed. No, my director is. I tapped the email again and scrolled to the signature block. My name, my title, my direct line, then the internal org chart attachment I'd sent that afternoon. Sienna Park reports to Ethan Cole's Ops Risk. Someone at the table made a small noise, half laugh, half choke. The kind of involuntary sound people make when their brain can't decide whether it's funny or terrifying. Sienna's mouth opened, then closed. This has to be a misunderstanding, she said quickly, eyes darting around, searching for support. Derek's mother stared at the phone like it was an optical illusion. Leela didn't say anything. She just watched, her face unreadable, like she was finally letting the truth speak for itself. Derek recovered first, but not with grace. His laugh came out sharp, defensive. Okay, he said, pointing at me like I'd cheated. So you have a good job. Great. That doesn't mean you get to. It means, I said, cutting him off without raising my voice, that you all just spent the last hour laughing while someone mocked me for being unambitious. Sienna's eyes flashed with panic now. Ethan, I didn't know, she said, tone suddenly soft. I was just joking. Of course you were, I replied. Because you thought it was safe. Derek's face reddened. You didn't tell anyone, he snapped, and the truth slipped out in the anger. You just let them think you were that guy. I looked around the table. At the silence, at the lowered eyes, at Sienna's forced smile collapsing. In that silence, I realized they weren't laughing because she was funny. They were laughing because they thought I was safe to disrespect. I didn't smile. I didn't savor it. I didn't lean back and enjoy their discomfort. Because I wasn't there to win a scene. I was there to stop something that had been happening for too long. Sienna tried to scramble first. Ethan, I'm sorry, she said quickly. I didn't mean it. I was just trying to fit in. Her eyes flicked to Derek, then to his parents, checking the room, making sure the apology played well. I shook my head once. No, I said calmly. You weren't trying to fit in. You were trying to climb. There's a difference. Her lips parted, and she looked genuinely offended that I wouldn't accept the first draft of her regret. I turned to the table. Here's what's going to happen, I said, voice steady. If you want me in this family, you treat me with basic respect. If you want Lila in this family, you stop talking about her marriage like it's a mistake you're tolerating. Derek scoffed. Oh my God, you're so dramatic. Lila's chair scraped back. She stood, and the room shifted. Because when Lila stood, the invisible rules changed. Actually, she said, looking directly at her brother, you're the one who's dramatic. You brought someone into this house who insulted my husband, and you laughed like it was entertainment. Derek's face hardened. He's humiliating her. No, Lila said, voice even. He's showing you consequences. You're just not used to them. Sienna tried again, softer now. Lila, I really don't. Lila cut in. Not until you can say what you did without hiding behind jokes. The room stayed quiet. Their parents looked stunned, like they'd never seen their daughter choose a side so clearly. I nodded once, final. An apology is a start, I said, but respect is the rule. If you can't do that, then we won't be coming to dinners where I'm the punchline. Derek slammed his palm lightly on the table. Unbelievable. He muttered as if Eve were the problem. That's when the dinner stopped being about a girlfriend's joke and became about what my wife's family thinks loyalty means. Lila's mother was the first to move, palms up like she could physically lower the temperature in the room. Okay, she said quickly, forcing a smile that didn't fit her face. Everyone just take a breath. This got out of hand. Sienna, you didn't mean it. Ethan, you're understandably upset. Let's not ruin the whole night. Her father didn't look at me. He looked at Derek, then at Sienna like he was deciding which version of family he needed to defend. It was a joke, he said finally, voice hardening. People are too sensitive these days. Sienna latched onto that instantly. She sat up straighter, the panic shifting into irritation. Exactly, she said. I was kidding. If Ethan can't handle a little humor, maybe he shouldn't come to these dinners. Lila's eyes flashed. Don't talk about my husband like that in my parents' house, she said, each word controlled. Sienna shrugged. Then maybe you shouldn't have married someone who needs a permission slip to feel confident. Derek's mouth opened, ready to pile on again. Then he seemed to realize the room wasn't laughing anymore. No one was rushing to rescue Sienna from the consequence of her own mouth. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't threaten. I didn't mention her job again. I simply picked up my phone and tapped a message to myself. E-Purse remove Sienna Park as account contact. Reassign onboarding lead. Sex not revenge. Risk management. I didn't want a business relationship with someone who treated people like props. Lila saw the movement and understood immediately. She didn't smile. She just inhaled slowly, then reached for her coat. We're leaving, she said. Her mother's face fell. Her father looked offended. Derek looked angry, until Sienna stood abruptly and grabbed her purse like she'd been slapped. Unreal? She muttered and stormed toward the foyer. Derek hesitated, torn between chasing her and saving face. Then he followed her. The ride home was quiet. But it wasn't the kind of quiet that ends. It was the kind that forces truth. For the first 10 minutes, All I could hear was the hum of the road and the soft click of the turn signal. Leela stared out the passenger window, arms crossed tight. Not at me, at the night, at the house, at the fact that it had taken a stranger to expose what her family had been doing in smaller doses for years. "I'm sorry," she said finally, voice strained. "I should have stopped it sooner." I glanced at her. "You did stop it," I said. "Tonight, you chose us." Her jaw tightened. "But why did you let it go on that long?" Her eyes flicked to me, hurt and angry. "Why sit there and take it? Why not tell them who you are, what you do, so they couldn't treat you like that?" I took a breath. "Because I didn't want our marriage to become a negotiation with your family," I said. "I didn't want to win their respect by flashing credentials. I wanted them to respect me because I'm your husband. Because I'm a person." She swallowed. "And I kept trying to keep the peace," she admitted. "I kept thinking if I redirected, if I smiled, if I didn't react, it would eventually stop." "It didn't," I said quietly. "It normalized." We drove another block in silence, then Lila nodded once, like she'd made a decision. "Okay," she said. "New rule. No more ambush dinners. No more laughing things off. If they disrespect you, we leave. If they disrespect our marriage, they lose access to us." I felt my chest loosen slightly. "Agreed." She reached over and took my hand, squeezing it once. "I'm with you," she said. By the next morning, my phone looked like a scoreboard. Everyone suddenly wanted to explain. By 9 a.m., Derek had sent 3 texts that all said the same thing in different fonts of anger. "Ses Derekiasurus, you embarrass Sienna, so you always have to make everything about you. Arshers Derekashus, Mom is furious. Dad says you crossed a line." I didn't reply. Leela read them over my shoulder and exhaled through her nose. "He's not mad you embarrassed her," she said. "He's mad the family didn't clap for him. Her parents were more strategic. They called Leela, not me. Her mother left a voicemail of 'Let's not blow this up. Sienna's new. She made a mistake. Families tease each other. Please call me.' Her father texted, 'F, we need to move on. You don't get to threaten people at my table.'" Then Sienna's message came through, an hour later, carefully composed. "Sienna's, Ethan, I'm sorry you felt disrespected. I was nervous and trying to fit in. I hope we can put this behind us." I stared at it for a long moment. "Sorry you felt. Not I was wrong. Not, Sarai mocked you." Just a tidy little apology designed to make her look reasonable. I didn't respond. Instead, I blocked her number and forwarded her email to my work account with a note. "Hess, keep communication professional. No direct contact." That afternoon, Leela's mom showed up at our door, alone. No Makoto, hostess, smile, no performance. Just tired eyes and a quiet voice. "I owe you both an apology," she said, and her gaze held mine. "Not for Sienna. For me. For laughing. For letting it happen." Leela's shoulders softened a fraction. "Why now?" she asked. Her mom swallowed. "Because I saw your face when you stood up for him," she admitted. "And I realized I've been asking you to shrink for this family for years." I nodded once. "Respect is the price of access," I said gently. "If that's too expensive, then we won't be around." She nodded, tears gathering. "Then, can we do dinner again? Your place, your rules. No Derek, no Sienna, just us." They wanted a redo. But a redo only matters if the people involved actually change. We had dinner with Leela's parents the following week at our apartment. No fancy table settings. No forced laughter. Just takeout containers, a simple bottle of wine, and a conversation that finally sounded like adults speaking to adults. Her father didn't apologize right away. He avoided my eyes for most of the meal. But when he finally spoke, it wasn't polished. "I didn't like being challenged in my own home," he admitted. "But I also didn't like who I was when I laughed." It wasn't perfect. It wasn't a movie ending. But it was a start. Derek didn't come. He didn't reach out again for a while. When he eventually did, it was short and stubborn. Something about moving forward. No real accountability. Leela and I accepted what it was, not reconciliation, just distance with boundaries. Sienna, we never saw her again. Last I heard, she quit that job within a month. Derek called it bad timing. I called it what it was, consequences. Here's what I learned. People laugh at disrespect when they think it's safe, when they believe you have no power, no voice, no leverage. And if you keep showing up and absorbing it, they start thinking it's normal. Dignity isn't loud. It's a boundary. You don't have to shout to be strong. You just have to stop cooperating with your own humiliation. So let me ask you, have you ever been mocked in front of family? Maybe at dinner, at a wedding, at a holiday gathering. What did you do? Drop it in the comments. If you want more stories about quiet power, boundaries, and justice served without cruelty, subscribe. Because the loudest people at the table aren't always the strongest. Sometimes the strongest one is the one who stayed calm.